We hoped that would mean the French would leave us in peace.
Saigon has all the trappings of the colonial good life. But the French authorities treat dissent ruthlessly. Ngo Vinh Long, raised in the Mekong Delta in the south of the country, remembers his childhood under French rule.
The French made routine patrols and killed many Vietnamese. They dumped their bodies in the river. Every time I went down to get water, I saw floating corpses. I hated the French. My father said, we shouldn't hate the French, only French colonial policy.
The remote villages in the mountains and jungles are fertile recruiting grounds for the nationalist cause. Long's father is active in the struggle.
My father was very idealistic. He gave most of his land to the peasants in his village in the north and moved to the Mekong Delta as a school teacher. He was horribly tortured by the French. They bashed his head and broke his ribs, puncturing his lungs. Doctor said he only had a week to live, but he refused to die.
Nationalism is also rife among the intellectuals and politically active in the towns and cities. Nguyen Lacroix.
Many of us liked the French lifestyle, and parts of Saigon were very nice. But they were foreign rulers. Many weren't people, but some treated us like animals.
Fort Puplek, a French fortification in the Kratai district of southeast Cambodia, 1938. It has been built to keep at bay the local people, a tribe the French call le Moi Sauvage, the wild Moi. The Western colonial powers espouse the virtues of liberal democracy. So many nationalist movements look to communism for ideological support, especially the Marxist-Leninism of the Soviet Union. The leader of the Indo-Chinese Communist Party is a 48-year-old Vietnamese exile. His name? Ho Chi Minh. Soviet documentary maker Roman Carmen films him and his supporters in 1954. In an address at the founding of the Indo-Chinese Communist Party, Ho Chi Minh.
World War II will soon break out. When it happens, the French imperialists will certainly drive our people to a more horrible slaughter. However, their barbarous oppression and ruthless exploitation have awakened our compatriots. Everywhere, the masses have risen to oppose the French imperialists.
The Dutch East Indies, August 31st, 1941. Dutch soldiers and sailors relax in the cafes of Batavia, the sophisticated capital of Java. But all is not as it seems. Dutch troops parade defiantly, despite the fact that their homeland has fallen to the German army. The Nazis are rampaging across Europe. Japan has occupied large parts of China, and its imperial forces are massing for a huge attack in the Pacific and Southeast Asia. The world will never be the same again. By the autumn of 1941, France is under the control of the Vichy government, which has signed an accord with Japan's ally, Adolf Hitler. After initial skirmishes, the French authorities in Indochina agreed to allow the Japanese army unhindered movement throughout the colony. Now the Indo-Chinese people have two masters, Vichy France and Imperial Japan. Ho Chi Minh.
The French bow their heads and kneel down shamelessly, without a single word of protest. As a result, our people suffer under a double burden. They serve not only as buffaloes and horses to the French invaders, but also to the Japanese. What sin has our people committed to be doomed to such a wretched plight?
As the pro-Vichy French authorities administer Indochina under the watchful eye of the Japanese army, Ho Chi Minh and a small band of fellow revolutionaries set up camp in a remote region across the Vietnamese border in China. One of them is a 29-year-old intellectual, Vo Nguyen Giap.
When we were in Quay Linh, Uncle Ho came and discussed with us the preparations for the task ahead when we return to our country. He said, in the current situation, national security becomes all the more important. We must organize a broad national front. We had better call it the Vietnamese Independence League. But that's a long name. We'll shorten it to Viet Minh. People will remember that.
During their exile, Ho Chi Minh takes a prophetic decision about Giap's role.
Uncle Ho asked about organizing a national liberation army. Turning to me, he said, "This you should carry out. Can you do that?" I answered, "Yes, I'll do that." Then he said, "We are still weak. The enemy is strong. But we must not let them annihilate us."
By 1942, following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, the only parts of Asia and the Pacific not under Japanese control are the British stronghold of India and the territory in China controlled by Chiang Kai-shek's anti-communist Chinese nationalists. The fighting in China is ferocious. August 13th, 1942, Chungking, central China. A daytime bombing raid by the Japanese Air Force. Seven days of bombing devastates the city.